Hey, everybody, welcome back to episode number 6 of the Pastor Dad podcast. This week is all about relationships. I had a few questions come in the last couple weeks, actually, that were similar enough that it made sense to kind of cobble them together and make an episode out of them. Now, I've already had some back and forth with each person that submitted questions. In fact, one was a phone call. But these questions were similar enough, these concerns were similar enough that I thought this deserves probably a standalone episode where we address all of them at one shot, kind of tie them all together and see what they have in common. And what I'm excited about is if I can pull it off today, we're looking at bringing on a special guest to the show. So in the long history of the Pastor Dad podcast, which is now the history being 5 episodes, this is number 6. We have not had anybody else but yours truly in the hot seat for one of these episodes. So I'm excited. If I can pull that off, we're going to have a special guest. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this person's contribution. And so looking forward to that if it can work out. But without further ado, episode number 6, Wedding Bells, Worldviews, and Family Feuds coming up next. All right, so we received 3 groups of questions, I'll call it. They were distinct, but as I mentioned, they're connected and well enough for an episode. We're going to call these people, we're going to change their names to protect the identity of those that submitted them. I don't know that they would even mind being named, but I'll never do that without permission, and especially if things are personal, I want to leave that set up. So we're going to call them Tom, Eric, and Jamie. So these are the first 2 male questioners that I've received. So Tom had questions about how, in general, this is kind of just an overview, but in general, how do you meet somebody today? What does that look like to meet somebody for the purpose of trying to court or date them? And what does that look like? What should it look like in today's environment, especially if you have some other concerns that we'll get into? Next, Eric is a younger guy, and he was all about what if you're dating somebody who doesn't seem as serious about the dating relationship as you do. What do you do? How do you proceed? And what's that all about? How should you read that? All right. And then finally, we'll call this third questioner Jamie. And this kind of segment will be called what do you do when worldviews collide? And this is it's a sad sort of thing that I've seen happening. I've seen trending, and we'll get into even between family members. What do you do when worldviews don't align? And what is some of the fallout that can happen? How do you respond to it? As always, with all these things, and forgive me for looking down. I'm reading my notes off the screen, and at least it's on the same monitor as the camera sits on. But as always, we're in search of truth. That's what we're all about in this show. Faith, family, culture, and truth. All of it through the lens of truth. Even the faith stuff, right? But we're always in search of truth because that is what sets us free. John 8:32. We will be the most free when we are living our lives the most according in the most alignment with the truth. And so we're exploring these things as always in search of truth, explored through the lens of faith, because I think our faith, if we've discovered it to be true, which I believe that I have with Christianity, then we should be living our lives in concert with that. And so truth, as defined by the lens of our faith, rather faith defined by truth, and then we see everything once we recognize it as truth. We see everything colored by our faith. And so that's what we're going to get into today. Those 3 overviews will kind of set the stage for what we're going to get into. And I think I'm going to be able to pull this off with a special guest. When we come back, we'll have our special guest with us, and we'll get started diving into these questions, hopefully with some good and godly biblical wisdom. And as always, I invite you to, as you're watching this, I invite you to jump in on the comments and offer some additional thoughts that maybe you'll have. I think this is going to be best done if it's done in community. And so if you have your thoughts, please don't hesitate to drop those comments. I won't for a second think that everything I say is the end-all be-all, what could be said. There's a lot of books out there written on these subjects, a lot of ink spilled, a lot of podcasts done, a lot of lectures done. And so I won't but scratch the surface in anything that we cover today. But it's all the more helpful if you jump in the comments and let us know what has worked for you and what other biblical wisdom might we glean from those that are watching. So all that in just a moment. All right, so I pulled some strings and I was able to do it, able to pull it off. I brought in a special guest for our relationship episode, and who better than my most important relationship, our most important relationship, my better half, Brindy. And so this is kind of like a throwback. We did this during COVID.
Yes, we did.
Wasn't that fun?
Hi, guys. Yeah, it was.
She doesn't. She's lying right now because she doesn't think it's fun at all. She thinks it's even less fun than I do. I think it's kind of fun, but it's nerve wracking to be on a camera. But I thought it'd be pretty cool if we could talk together about some of the things that it was a while ago, 22 years ago, for our wedding. But actually coming up on the 14th.
Yep.
22 years on the 14th of November. But just thought it'd be kind of cool to reminisce and remember, how we navigated some of these things. It's going to be very different in some ways because we had the world was different 22, 24 years ago.
Yeah.
But I think there's still some timeless sort of considerations that when it comes to relationships, so some things that we should always keep in mind, no matter what technology is doing, no matter what is going on around us, that we should be firm in especially as believers. So we're just going to walk through all the questions. We'll get into more of the nitty gritty of the questions. So I gave the overviews while you were away, while I was having my team try to see if they could get you in on a flight quick enough to get here. And it turns out we were able to pull it off. So I recorded the first couple of segments, but we're just going to together walk through the more detailed version of the questions that came in, and hopefully we'll do some justice to it. I do want to invite anybody, whether you're watching on Facebook or you're watching on YouTube. If you're not aware, we do have a mirror YouTube channel, and for some people that's more convenient because you can click subscribe and smash that notification bell, as they say, as the YouTubers say. I'm not one of them, but they do say that. Yeah. I mean, they have more than 12 subscribers when they say smash that notification.
Do they say cooked?
No, they don't say cooked.
I like that
I've tried to leave that in the past.
I like that one.
But I use the word cooked.
Yeah, and kids are saying it.
They are saying it, but we should leave it to the kids to say it, because when I say things that the kids say, people just stare at me. But we'll walk through these questions, and whether you're watching on Facebook or you're watching on YouTube, feel free to drop the questions, drop the comments in the chat, and hopefully that will be an even greater help to those that are seeking it, that sent these questions in. And so, like I said, I mentioned in the previous segment that I had already kind of answered these questions. We had some back and forth with those that submitted them. But maybe now it can appeal to a wider audience and be a help to somebody else. So we're going to start with questioner 1, and we'll call questioner 1, we'll call him Tom. And so the first question, the first part of the question was, where do I start trying to meet people? Where do I start trying to meet people? And how can I build confidence? He feels, in this case, he feels like he has too much baggage, no social skills, right? So that can put you in a place where you feel isolated. It puts you in a place where you're like, what do I do? Like, I see all these extroverts out there mingling and doing things. What about the person that isn't that? Thirdly, the online dating scene is, quote, terrible, and approaching women in person is terrifying. I think, Tom, a lot of people can relate to this. And so we'll do our best to field that question with a few answers. I want to start with, as I'm navigating my slides here, I want to start with the idea that, the online dating scene may be terrible. We actually, having met in person before there really was an online dating.
It wasn't as big.
We are old enough to think back to a time not that long ago when we can't relate to a thing. But my first thought would have been...
But you were hearing about it, though. You were starting to hear...
Sure.
Because a couple of years after we were married, we were starting to hear a little bit more of our friends were starting.
So it became a thing when we were we were already married, but we knew of enough people that were meeting.
Yeah.
And so I would say maybe it is terrible, but maybe those of you that are out there, perhaps perhaps you can help us with this, because I would have thought that that'd be a great way for somebody who's kind of more introverted and nervous about meeting somebody, approaching somebody, that online would be the perfect answer. Maybe there's an app out there. Maybe there's a website out there that works really well for Christians, and because I think that's what you need to be looking for. And which brings me to the second point I was going to make is if it's not online, my next thought, and actually this could be my first thought because we should be there anyway, is church is always a great place to try to find people. Why? Because I think it's of utmost importance that we are dating. The purpose of dating is to, what it should be for is to search out that person that you plan to marry. I mean, to my mind, there's really no other purpose in dating than to find the person that you are going to spend the rest of your life with. Now, people have, strong opinions about dating versus courtship versus whatever it might be. And then that would include this book that was popular a while back, I Kissed Dating Goodbye. So people have strong feelings on that, but insofar as the effort is to meet somebody with whom you would like to discover a desire to spend the rest of your life with, a church is always a great place to start. And if you're at a church, I suppose, if you're at a church that doesn't have a group of like similar age group, then maybe it's time to look around. Maybe there's other churches with a more a better 20-something, 30-something group, depending on your age group, to get connected. And I would say that for this one main reason, and this is going to be a thread throughout this episode, is the idea of not being unequally yoked. The Bible talks about not being unequally yoked with an unbeliever. Why? Because worldview is such an important thing, and that's going to be something we'll bring up several times throughout this episode, is worldview. And you simply can't confidently step out into the most important relationship you'll ever pursue without agreeing on that. We'll have more to say, and I want to bring you in on that. You may or may not remember when you and I had worldview discussions about how we would go about those things. But the second question is this: how can I build confidence? I feel I have too much baggage and no social skills. Well, I would say, first of all, that we all have baggage.
Yeah.
There's not a human alive that's lived more than 30 seconds that doesn't have baggage. And so I think that is something that you don't need to sell yourself short because you feel like you have your own too much of it, because we all do.
Yeah.
And I want to back up actually, because one of the things I wanted to say when I was looking over my notes for this is the gentleman that sent this question in. The reason he's struggling to find and to meet people is he spent much of his 20s caring for grandparents and a parent.
And that's
what an
honorable
what an honorable, noble thing
that could draw somebody.
I mean, that's
compassion and
that's
care.
your anti-baggage.
There are, so many people I know, there are people much older than that wouldn't do that. Mm-mm. So for a young man in his 20s to be spending his 20s to care for other people in his life, that's actually, I unfortunately, it's more rare.
Yeah.
So
but
I
if that's
find that to be a big deal.
If that's what your baggage looks like, it's a what's a designer bag?
Gucci.
It's a Gucci bag, right? Because that's the kind of stuff that will make you or another person that may be in a similar spot marriage material. Mm-hmm. The kind of commitment to family. Think of the passage. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You already have a servant's heart, and that's again hard.
When I think of the passage, and I'll have to get a screenshot of this to put on the when I edit, but the honor your parents, that your days may be long upon the earth. Mm-hmm. It's like one of the things that promise comes with it, or commands that comes with the promise of old age, like living, into your later years, because you've honored your parents. What better way to honor your parents than be taking care of them,
Yeah.
when they're unable to take care of themselves? So if that's baggage, that's a Gucci bag, right? And so don't sell yourself too short. But how can I build confidence? I get it, because a lot of people are more introverted. I don't find that, it's not a difficulty for me, but I know for once in my life it was. Um, and and I know it is for so many people that feel more introverted. They feel like they don't have. We've kind of gotten beyond high school and we're now adults, but it's like I'm not in a regular sort of back and forth where there's an opportunity for me to meet a lot of people. Well, I would say this, and I really want to come to you, Brindy, because I would say there's nothing builds muscle like doing the thing. So you can't build confidence without actually just facing the thing you're most afraid of, and that's why I wanted to bring you in, because Brandy tends to be on the shyer side of things.
Yeah.
When it comes to what if you had to name me one thing that you do on the regular that terrifies you, what would you say that is?
Well, there's a couple things that I do that, well, I would say going up on the stage and
That's what I was thinking.
and singing with our worship team at church. Being up on the stage is a little frightening, but then to be putting your voice to a microphone, it's even more terrifying.
Yeah, it's not gone away for you.
No, it has. I thought for sure after a couple of years I'd be like, yeah, it's no big deal. Nope.
But has it gotten easier?
Overall, yes, a little easier.
A little bit.
But I still sweat and my knees shake. And things happen.
Yeah, so I
have to fight it every week.
Courage is not the absence of fear; it's proceeding in the face of it. And I think there's something again so noble about facing our fears and going after the thing in life that we are actually most terrified of. And so there's nothing like doing, when I have the opportunity and the privilege of kind of teaching some of these things in a corporate environment for my I'll call it my side job, is my 9 to 5. It's actually the thing I spend most of my time doing, but
it helps us get groceries.
It does help us get groceries. And I often will encounter people that are maybe afraid of public speaking or getting behind a microphone, singing in front of people. And there's no substitute in the world for simply doing the thing that you're afraid of, the thing that intimidates you. There is no substitute at all for just doing that. And so I would encourage you, Tom, and anybody else that is maybe can relate to Tom in this, really get out there. Find a good church. If you're not already in one, find a good church home. And make yourself go to the small groups. Make yourself go to the 20 and 30 somethings groups, the college and career, whatever age bracket you find yourself in. If you're in the same spot as Tom, find yourself in more and more opportunities to flex that muscle about doing the thing, because that's the only cure for feeling a lack of confidence, is to build that muscle of confidence by doing the thing that terrifies you right now. So on top of that, I will be in prayer for you, Tom, and that's difficult. And I already have been, and will continue, but I am confident that, because I know this person. I know him to be a good person with a good heart, big heart, and very much somebody who would and will make some woman just fall head over heels. And so we will be praying to that end. It's a good thing that you want to be married. Paul talked about he had an ability. Paul was celibate. He was able to do that, and he even said at times, I wish everybody could be like me, but because there could be more missionaries in the world. But he recognized that most of us, myself included, were not equipped with the giftings to be able to not be married. And so we had to it's best for us that do not have the gift to go ahead and get married. And so you're doing a noble thing and taking care of your parents. You're doing a noble thing and wanting to be married. These are all good things, and God wants to give us good things. I'm going to pray that in his timing, and you'll be confident in his timing, that you will see that come to fruition. Now, thirdly, he says the online, and we know nothing about this really, but the online dating scene is terrible. and approaching women in person is terrifying. So I'll start with the online thing. Again, I'm going to rely on some of our listeners, some of our viewers. If you have experience with, particularly with a Christian app, I mean,
Yeah,
I think it's
Christian
so important that we
platform.
start
Yeah.
with that. But a Christian platform, I know there's Christian, what is it called? Christian Mingle or
Mingle.
something like that. I
I
don't
don't
know if
even
that's,
know.
I don't know if that's the only one. There's got to be others out there. But I would encourage you to at least leave that option open while you're doing other things. But I get it. It can be terrifying. Now I don't share the experience that I was always afraid to talk to girls, but I will share this. I was afraid to talk to one girl in particular, and I'm sitting next to her right now. I think one of the key bits of advice I would offer is leverage your friends. If there is a girl you'd like to meet and you want to see if you
Yeah.
have anything in common and if this could go someplace, you leverage your friends. What are they for? To do friendly things
To
for you,
help.
and friends to help. And I had a friend. Who knew that I was intimidated to talk to Brindy, and so I actually left my phone number on a napkin for her. She was a waitress, and I was sitting at the table. Left
I
my
was a hostess
You're a hostess,
first.
okay?
Yeah.
My apologies.
It's okay.
Um,
And it's
Go
hard to
ahead.
picture you. It's still hard for you to picture you being intimidated.
I know, but I
Cute.
was,
It's
but I
so
was.
cute.
And so I had a friend who I was even nervous about him doing this, and because I knew it was going to make me look a little bit like a chump for not being willing to do it myself. But I
No.
knew I liked the prize more than I hated getting there, and so my friend Eric introduced us and even kind of helped me let her know that I was interested in maybe pursuing something, a friendship that would lead to maybe dating, and that was pretty much where it clicked.
Yeah, I will say at first when I saw this nickname with phone number and then looked over at the table, but he was already gone, I was like, psh, probably some crazy guy or
Yeah,
something. But I knew your friend too, so I
some
was like,
jerk.
but yeah, I mean, eventually down the road, I was
Yeah.
like, hey, Ahoa.
And the rest is as they say is history.
History.
But
Celebrate.
but do leverage your friends. I mean,
Yeah.
and allow them to be the help for you there,
Yeah.
because good friends won't mind doing that. In fact, good friends will want to do that
Yeah.
for you.
Mm-hmm.
So Tom, we're praying for you. We hope that you find the love of your life, and it's not that long from now. And just trust God. His timing's perfect. You're doing such a noble thing in what you're doing, and I just can't say enough about that.
Mm-hmm.
That some woman will see that, and that's all she'll need to see, is how well you care for your parents, and know that you will give that sort of care and concern for the most important relationship you'll enter into one day, and that's marriage. So prayers for you, Tom, and anybody else in Tom's situation. But we're going to move on to the next question. The next question is, we're going to call this person Eric. And these series of questions coming from a bit of a younger person. And so it came to me, and it's right around the same time as I talked to Tom. And he says to me, how do I have success in a relationship with God's help? What does that look like? And I said, well, bingo. That's, my thought at least was bingo. That's what you need is God's help.
Yeah.
You need to be pursuing God's will, but you can only do it with God's help.
Mm-hmm.
But because none of us can draw a breath without God's help. Let's be honest with ourselves. But I would also say, how can you have success in a relationship? Well, this is where I bring back in the worldview thing. That worldviews must be aligned. Again, the Bible tells us, and I'll get the scripture for you, but the Bible tells us not to be unequally yoked with unbelievers. And so if you are unequally yoked, and it might not be just in a relationship that you're hoping ends in marriage, but it could be a business relationship. I think there's a real healthy sort of standard to be put in place that any serious relationship you enter into, you should be aligned on these worldview questions, because if you're not, when push comes to shove, and it will,
Yeah.
every relationship has friction in it, and if you are in a spot where that's true for you, you're going to find that it's going to be tough to make it work, and you don't want to put yourself on a bad footing right away. My camera keeps zooming out, and we don't want it to. No. We don't want that. So I'll keep monitoring that as we look to answer these things. But I got to figure that out. It does that to me every time I try to record. I don't have very sophisticated recording software, so we'll try to get that sorted out. But worldviews, Eric, that worldviews must be aligned, and sort that out early.
Yeah, because I like that you said that, because there are already two people trying to spend the rest of their life together. There's already going to be friction at different times, for different reasons. Life isn't always perfect. So why add a for sure point of friction?
Why add guarantee? That's good. That's a good way of putting it. Why add a guaranteed layer of friction? We're all going to find things we disagree with, but they don't need to be worldview type items. And that's why I mentioned earlier, you and I, when we were dating, we getting very serious about our dating and thinking this really could lead to marriage. Mm-hmm. We had to sit down. We talked about how are we going to raise kids? What's it going to look like? How important is our faith? Mm-hmm. And how do we view the priority of even raising children? I mean, I remember being a real comforting thing to me that you wanted nothing more in life than to be a mother, mm-hmm. and to be able to stay at home and do that. That's not a knock on relationships that don't look exactly like that, especially in today's economy. It's very difficult to make one salary, work for the household. We did it for a long time. Mm-hmm. So it's not a knock on anybody that doesn't do that, but it is, I do want to say it is plan A. It should be plan A, mm-hmm. for the Christian pursuing the prioritization of God's plan for your life would look like that. And I can say that pretty unequivocally because I think there's no substitute for ladies out there. There simply is no substitute for you and the God-given nurturing abilities you have to bring up, to rear children. There's just no substitute for that. You have been given such a supernatural gifting. And I've watched that up close with you and the kids, that like, even if it was to swap me for you, like it wouldn't be as good. And that's by design. That's by God's design. So the perfect plan A, I think, is that. But if I'm kind of going down a rabbit trail here, but the idea is worldview, and bring it back to the worldview. Yeah. Those are the kind of questions that you ask and that you make sure you're aligned with, or else you might be asking for trouble later on when you find that you're not quite aligned with somebody. It makes it very difficult to proceed. I mean, I think it's a book of Amos says, how can two walk together except they be agreed? Mm-hmm. How can they? I mean, especially when differences and disagreements in today's society are so dividing, and they don't need to be. I think we need to rise to the occasion as a society and learn again how to have civil discourse, learn to have civil disagreements. It may be that we find out, well, I couldn't marry that person, but I could live next door to them without hating them. I'm not going to wish death on them simply because they disagree with me. But it's very important that if I'm going to spend my whole life with somebody, that we agree on those things. In large part, at least, and you and I don't agree on every single thing, but we usually try to find a middle ground when we can, and that brings me to my next point. The question kind of is, what if it seems like one person is putting in a lot more effort than the other person? How do I talk about that with the other person? Well, first I would say, if one person is putting in all the effort and the other person is not really rising to the challenge or the occasion, that might be a really blatant red flag. Yeah. No, and it might not mean that they're a terrible person.
No, and like, age-wise, season of life, I remember when I was much younger, you're in a season of life where you feel a little differently about things. But it doesn't always, as you grow older, out of the college age and everything, you do start changing sometimes your
perspective and
and what is important to you and your priorities. So there is still chance or time for growth and change.
Right.
But yes, I agree. Like it could be a red flag too if one is putting in all the effort, and the other one
and
is
it
not. So
and it may not be that this is a forever no. It's just a stage of life,
of life. Because I remember,
and maybe it comes back to maybe a couple years down the road. You're like, I remember, I don't know if you want me to share this, but
I was thinking
you were thinking about it.
I think so.
There was a time when Brittany and I were dating, then we stopped dating for a while, and I tried pursuing her again, and I think you said, do you remember what you said? Life's not all about
love and marriage.
Life's not all about love and marriage.
Because I was feeling a little spicy at you.
Yeah, you were. I heard her feelings, and it was fair. It was fair for her to respond that way.
Just took me a little time.
But even if you weren't being reactionary to me being a jerk, the idea is there are times when you're at school, your priority is school.
You're trying to think about getting school done,
and so give that grace to the other person and say, it may be that you're not in a spot right now where I am, and that's okay. That's okay. Maybe if this is meant to be, pray about it, and if everything else is lined up, everything seems like it's a go, but they're just not in the right spot. Well, if you love them and care about them enough, then give them the space that you would want them to give you. If the situation were reversed,
because it could come back around.
Yeah,
and who knows,
And I want to come back on this idea of, so we mentioned it already earlier, kind of tipped my hand a little early, but the whole purpose of dating is to find your spouse. What are you doing? I mean, I don't believe in just sort of this reckless idea of just sowing wild oats. I think that's a terrible thing. I think it's I think it's a terribly misguided thing. You do nothing other than share intimate parts of you with other people that you can never get back. You can never get that part of you that you gave away. You can never take it back. Now, it doesn't mean that you're used up or anything else. I mean, God, a story of God and us is all about redemption and how, even though we come to Him maybe not our prettiest or our most best looking, He still wants us. Mm-hmm. And so that's not to say that, but it's just don't. There's no biblical basis for just testing the waters with every. In a sense, dating can feel like that, but it should not be that you're giving away. You're meeting people, you're mingling with people, you're trying to find that person that you think God may have for you. Mm-hmm. And I want to come back on that too, because I some people have this idea that I'm going down rabbit trails, but some people have this idea that there's one person out there for me, and only one person. I believe very strongly that God can have somebody for you, and maybe you find them and maybe you don't, but I don't know that that's everybody's story. I think if we pursue marriage as we see in the Bible, if we pursue marriage as in a proper submission to the Lord first, and the proper dynamic at home, people don't like this, but the Paul says, wives, submit to your husbands. They're the head of the family, and husbands submit to the Lord, and love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave His life for it.
Yeah, God's blueprint.
And so if we're following His blueprint, we'll see that well. And I don't know, I went down that path, but the purpose of dating is to find your spouse, and only that. Now, if you want to talk about this with that person, like you feel like you're not putting in the same effort that I'm putting in, that may be true. I think be direct, but be kind about it. There's so many people that don't bring things up. We had this talk even with one of our kids the other day. If you're bothered in a relationship where it feels like somebody's being too demanding, mm-hmm. And even manipulative at times, and being pushy, you have to be direct. It'll free you from that. And if it frees you from that relationship, if that relationship can't handle a little bit of truth in love, and that's the key mm-hmm. formula there, truth in love. Yeah. If the relationship can't handle that, I don't think you are looking at a relationship that has what it takes to go the distance.
Right, time to move on.
It's probably time to move on and just be like, again, it could be a timing thing, mm-hmm. but more likely this is a maturity thing. Maybe they'll grow out of it, maybe they won't. Mm-hmm. But at least at this juncture, at this time, this stage, I would seek an exit, because life is going to be full of those moments that you don't always get along, or you don't think things are not perfect. And if it can't handle a little bit of direct truth in love, mm-hmm. Then the relationship can't handle much weight at all, and it's probably time to move on. So, and I see I have a repeat question from our previous questioner, so we're just going to move on. So that was our answer session for Eric. Eric, I hope you find this useful. And we just lost our.
It's when you switch to the next
I know.
slide. Did you know that's when it does it?
I do, and sometimes it doesn't do that. Sometimes it does. So
Okay,
I'm gonna figure it out, or I'm gonna look at. I'm gonna figure it out. All right, I'm on it. I'm at the whole team on it, which is me. You know, yeah, the whole team trying to figure this thing out.
You don't want me on that. Me and technology are.
But we will get it figured out, and maybe it's going to be when I get a better software to use to record these things. I'm just using the built-in recording software that comes with a PC. So shame on me for trusting that. But now we're going to talk about the situation with our third questioner, and we're going to call our third questioner Jamie. Now this one is sad. It really is sad. Mm-hmm. But it's a growing trend, and
You're seeing it more and more and more.
I think it's worth, mentioning, talking about. But there's this growing trend among young people of disowning and estranging themselves from their family because of this worldview difference. Mm-hmm. And again, this came to me not just a couple weeks ago, but it came to me in the reality of somebody that I know personally. Sharing their actual story mm-hmm. of their more and more adult child saying, you're toxic. I want nothing to do with you. I need a break from you. I'm moving on from you. And I've seen this as part of a larger trend in society where kids are referring, and not kids, but adult children and sometimes kids, but referring to their parents as toxic and estranging themselves from their family. And even saying, I prefer that you would have raised me differently. Now, that's besides being incredibly unfair. Because listen, I want to speak directly to the 17, 18, 19, 20, and up through 20, mid 20s. I want to speak directly to you for a moment because you have no idea. You have no idea how you're going to parent. We had no idea. We knew how we were going to plan to parent,
right?
But we had no idea how we would handle some of the most difficult things that we would encounter that we never wanted to encounter.
Right.
We never had any reason to think that we were going to encounter, mm-hmm. and we didn't want to encounter. And so until you've been in your parents' shoes, if you can say honestly that it was obvious growing up that your parents loved you, you have nothing to complain about. Of course, your parents didn't do everything exactly as you would have liked them to do because you're two different people. But you know what? When you grow up, because right now, if you're saying that to your parents, you're not grown up. You're still living as a child in your mind. Yeah. And if you're still saying that, if you're saying that to people, you are the toxic one. There's no substitute. You are the toxicity that you claim somebody else is. How loving are you? And usually these people that will do this, younger people that will do this, they will think themselves very virtuous.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's usually how it comes off.
And yet, with the most important relationships you have, the person that made sure you stayed alive to even have that opinion, mm-hmm. you're coming back and saying that you're toxic.
To me, it's like another form of a tantrum. It's just a little bit older of a person throwing a version of a tantrum.
And tantrums are never impressive
because of a different view or opinion on something. It's sad. It's really sad.
Yeah, and I hope that that this person and others like them will grow out of that. You very much. This is not going to help this person in this moment, but they probably also won't be watching this or listening to this. But for anybody else that might be and is considering the possibility of disowning your family members, grow up. You haven't lived life yet. If you have not been out on your own and you have not been doing life by yourself without any help, you are not in a position to say, well, I would have done things so differently. Maybe you would have. And you'll have an opportunity perhaps one day to demonstrate what that would look like and how good you would do things. But until you demonstrate those things, you have no idea how you're going to handle it. Yeah. And I think the same is true with our parents. We can have things that we say, I would have liked them to handle this differently than they mm-hmm. did. Okay, fine. Right. And my kids will grow up and say the same thing about me. So how about a little bit of grace between people? And I just want to say to Jamie, this is mind-blowingly sad. And I am heart is broken for you,
Mm-hmm.
because you should not be experiencing this right now. You should not be going through this, nor should any other parent that is in a similar spot. But
Yeah,
it's
because
go ahead.
I'm sorry, because we're not talking about, a dangerous situation. We're not, just to be
Yeah.
somewhat clear, we're not talking about, a person in a dangerous or
There's no
what's
physical
another one?
abuse.
Yeah,
No.
that's
Yeah.
what that's
Yeah.
like there was no, not that at all. We're literally talking about differences of opinions,
Worldview,
right?
largely political.
Political.
Um,
So we're talking about disowning someone because of a loved one because of their
yeah.
political views. That,
And
I'm
I
seeing
think,
it in grown up, like,
yeah.
everywhere now. It's just sad.
And I think that should be a huge red flag to oneself. If you're doing that, how loving can you, assume that you are? If by all measures love looks like forbearance and long suffering and tolerant and kind, and if you're exhibiting none of those traits, that you're not the loving one. And I just hope, for this person and for others that are going through similar things, I just, my prayers for you, my heart goes out to you. And I hope that one day you recognize this child. I hope one day recognizes they have made, because this is what I think is really to put our Christian lens back on it. I see this as really politics today has become another religion, and we're watching people defend their political views and opinions with as much fervor and zeal and aggression as you would see or think of somebody defending their religious beliefs. And I think they substitute their political beliefs because they don't want to have religious beliefs. Largely it comes down to, and this is not for everybody, but largely it comes down to, if I believe in a God and I enter into a relationship with God, then I'm going to ask the question, I'm going to have to answer the question, what does God want from me? And oftentimes we find that we think, we look at the scriptures or whatever it might be in it, and you say, well, God wants from me things that I don't want to give him. He wants me not to do things and enter into things that I want to enter into. And so it feels like I'm not free to do what I want to do. And the reality is that you will actually be the most free that you'll ever be in concert with what God wants for your life. But you have made a God of your political opinions. And to think at 24 that you've, or 25 or 26, however old this person was, early to mid 20s, I think it was. But to think that you figured everything out at this age, it is the height of arrogance. I knew nothing. I thought I knew some things in my 20s.
We always think we do.
But I also thought I knew some things in my teens. And I thought I knew some things in my 30s. And I think now I've learned some things in my 40s, but I will feel in my 50s probably the same way about my 40s as I do now about my 30s and 20s. So how about a little bit of humility? How about a little bit of circumspection, that you actually don't know everything that there is to know, and stop disowning the people that should be the closest to you. Can you have disagreements? Absolutely. My parents and I don't agree on everything.
Right.
And so that's just normal. I say this often, but any two people, if you think long and hard about anything, long and hard enough, you're going to discover the things that you differ on. And that's not reason to, lambast them. It's not reason to call them toxic, walk away from them.
That word is so...
It just shows how flimsy your convictions, how flimsy your love and your ties to those people really are. And so I think the only answer in this, because what I was getting at earlier is, I think this is, a lot of times I think this whole concept of politics becoming the new religion absolutely feels demonic to me. And I don't throw that term around a lot. I think a lot of people throw around the demonic when they just need more self-discipline in their lives. And it's not that you have a demon; it's that you have a willpower issue, and you're not you're not exercising the muscle of discipline enough in your life to get strong enough to resist those temptations. But I do think the trend that we're seeing now is such rabid hatred for people for simply disagreeing on some things. It can be nothing other than demonic in nature, and that's, to me, the only thing that does enough to answer the ferocity of it, the fervor of it, and the rabid nature of the hatred just is just too. It's too much to just attribute to. Yeah, we just share different. We have different opinions, and that's it. So, Jamie, I again, not to sound like a broken record, but we will be in prayer for you. We know a little bit about what it is to see kids grow up and start straying from what you taught them, and it can be heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking, and so we will be in prayer for you, and perhaps you're out there, excuse me, and you've experienced a similar thing, and maybe have some biblical wisdom and advice for Jamie in the comments. We would welcome your contribution to this, and so relationships very important. How we nurture them, how we find them, how we engage in them, what is the basis for them, and so this episode has been all about that, and I hope you find it useful. I appreciate, Brindy, you for jumping on. I know this is not your favorite thing to do, but it actually makes me feel a lot easier about doing this, and much more natural at it too when you're next to me. But I won't expect her to be on every episode unless this thing goes viral and we get like 1 million hits. Then I'm going to need you to be on all episodes going forward. So is that a deal?
We'll see. We'll see. Don't put your hand out. All
right. Well, with that, we love you guys, and we want the best for you. And thanks for joining in for episode 6, all about relationships.
Bye.